Are you ready to read an article from the BBC with me? When you learn English with the news, it's a great way to understand advanced grammar, complex sentence structure, natural vocabulary, and even correct pronunciation in a very fun and engaging way. And make sure you watch right until the end of this lesson because I'm going to read the article in full at the very end, and I'll also share a link to a free lesson PDF that summarizes everything we discuss in this lesson today. Welcome back to JForrest English Training. Of course, I'm Jennifer, and this is your place to become a fluent, confident English speaker. Let's get started. Welcome to our article. As you can see, we're talking about the new movie, Avatar, The Way of Water. So this is the title of the movie, Avatar, The Way of Water. Now let me read the full headline. Avatar, The Way of Water passes $1 billion at the global box office. That's a lot of money, right? This is the short form for billion. So let me write that out for you. Billion. Now, have you seen the original Avatar movie? I have not seen the original, and to be honest, I probably won't see this one either because I don't really like sci-fi movies too much. What about you? Let me know in the comments if you've seen the original, if you've seen this one, or you're excited to see this new movie. All right, let's continue on with our article. Avatar, The Way of Water has made $1 billion at the global box office in just 14 days, becoming the fastest film to pass the milestone this year. Let's look at this here, the milestone. This is a noun, and this is noun. This is an important event, and it can be in business or in life in general. So what could be a milestone for you, an important event in your life? The first one I think of is probably graduating from school, graduating from university, getting married, having a baby, those important events in one's life. So you could say graduating was an important milestone for me. So notice here, I'm starting my sentence with what? What is this grammatically? I'm starting my sentence with a gerund, and this acts as the subject of my sentence, and we do this when we're making a general statement. Graduating was an important milestone for me. Now, you could use it in business as well. We might say, let's set a milestone to double our profits this year. So in this case, it's similar to a goal. And the verb that we use with goal is you set a goal. That's just simply when you make a goal, but we don't say make a goal. We say set a goal, and you can set a milestone as well. So pay attention to that verb choice. And this is the same thing as saying a goal. And notice when you reach a goal, you can also pass a milestone, which is another way of saying exceed. So they did more than $1 billion. They passed it. So the milestone for the film was $1 billion, and they passed it. They went beyond it. All right. So obviously a very successful film. Let's continue on. The long-delayed sequel has proved a hit with audiences despite wildly varying reviews. So a sequel is when there's the original movie. I don't know if you remember, but there was an original Avatar movie many years ago. And a sequel is when they create another movie. So it's part one is the original, and then part two is the sequel. And in the sequel, they continue the story. So you can think of it as easily, I'll just say part 2, or it could be 2 or more. They can have more than one sequel, and that is a continuation. Continuation of the original movie. It could be a TV show as well. Now notice here, has proved. Prove is one of those verbs that actually has 2 separate forms that are acceptable in the third form, the participle. You could also say proven, has proven, and both of them are correct. So our verb conjugations are to prove, that's the infinitive, and then you have prove as the base, of course. And then we have proved, and then you can have proved or proven. Now, although both of these are correct, I would probably say that proved is more common, but I do hear proven enough that it's worth you knowing that both of them are acceptable and grammatically correct. But if you want to keep it easy, since proved is the past simple, you can also just remember proved as the participle as well. Okay, so here, to be a hit, has proven a hit. A hit in this case is something that is very popular or successful. So this is a really great idiom. So you might say our party was a hit. Our party was a hit. This means your party was very successful. It was popular. People enjoyed it. So ultimately it was successful. Our party was a hit. You could say, I hope our launch will be a hit. So notice this is in the future because I'm using I hope. I hope our launch will be a hit. So I don't know yet. Launch is when you introduce something new into the market. For example, a new product or service, you launch it. So you introduce it for the first time. So here, our expression is, this is a verb to be expression, to be a hit. Now, you need to conjugate your verb to be according to the subject and the time reference, of course, like always. So let's say you had more than one party or parties. Maybe you had an anniversary party, a birthday party, and a retirement party all in the same month. You could say our parties were, because we have the past simple with they, the subject is they. They were a hit. Our parties were a hit. Now notice I don't say our parties were hits, although a hit technically is singular, but I change my verb to be. I don't change my noun here. Our parties were a hit. I don't change it to hits, okay? So you conjugate your verb to be a hit, and let me just write out the meaning, to be successful or popular. So it makes sense they're saying the movie was a hit. It was successful. Well, why was it successful? Because it was popular. So they're saying the same thing, really, successful or popular. Let's continue on. It is one of only 3 films to surpass $1 billion this year, after Top Gun Maverick and Jurassic World Domination. So this is another example of a sequel, because there was an original Top Gun movie from, I don't know, the 80s, the 1980s or 1990s. I'm not sure. Long time ago with Tom Cruise. And then this year they made a sequel. So Top Gun Maverick is a sequel. So Top Gun Maverick, this movie is a sequel. The original was made in, I'm just going to say The 1980s. I'm not sure if that's correct. It might be the 90s. The original was made in the 1980s. Now notice I added the because I have 80s in general. When you have a year in general, 80s, a decade, 80s, 90s, you have to say the 80s, the 90s. But if I said in 1981 and I was specific, or 84, 87, then you don't use an article the. Was made in 1987 or was made in the 80s. You can just put 80s or you can add 1980s. If anyone knows when the original was made, then you can share that in the comments. Have you seen the original Top Gun? Have you seen the sequel, Top Gun Maverick? I have seen neither, but you can share in the comments. I have seen Jurassic World Domination. Okay, let's take a look at this. It is one of three. Now notice here, films. One of three films. Now the films is plural because it represents the three films. So there are three films. Now one of those three films. So that's why films is plural, even though we have one. So you might say, it was one of my favorite movies. Movies with an S. When you have one of, it means there are more than one movies, but you're talking about one specific, but the noun is plural, okay? But notice my verb is conjugated as singular. It was because of the one. So that's why the subject and the verb is singular, but the noun is plural. So I might say, she, one of our best employee. Okay, so do I want employee or employees? And do I want she is or she are? Well, hopefully this is pretty obvious to you that we need she is one of our best employees, and then I need plural because in the company as a whole, there are many employees. So that can be a tricky sentence structure, but obviously a very common sentence structure as well. So get comfortable with forming sentences like that because you will use them a lot. Okay. So notice here, they changed it to surpass instead of pass. In this case, they're exactly the same. You can pass something, you can surpass something. I would say we generally use surpass when you're talking about money specifically, like a specific dollar amount. And then you can use pass because remember before they were talking about milestones. So you pass a milestone, but you surpass a specific dollar amount. And both of them just means you went beyond, you exceeded. Okay, let's continue on. However, director James Cameron has said his technologically innovative movie needs to make $2 billion to break even. Wow. If you know what this means, you know why I said wow. To break even. This is when your total cost is the same as your total profit. So expenditures or costs and your profit are exactly the same. So what you put out and what you get back are even. Even means the same. So basically he's saying the movie cost $2 billion to produce, to create. So they need to earn $2 billion just to break even. not to get any profit. Profit is additional money after your expenses. So if the movie makes $3 billion, $2 billion is the cost of the movie, and then $1 billion will be profit. So this is generally used in a business context, break even, but you can use this in your situation as well, like more everyday situations. Let's say you bought a house. Okay, so house price, I'll just say, price. You paid, let's say, $500,000. Okay, this was the cost of your house, $500,000. And then house sold, $500,000. At this case, you broke even. You didn't gain any money and you didn't lose any money. You broke even. So you might say, we broke even on the sale of our house. We broke even. Now, I took my verb break and I put it in the past simple. Again, you might say, let's say you bought a house during the pandemic when prices were really high, at least in North America, and you need to sell your house today when prices are low. That's not a good situation for you, right? So you might say, I hope we at least break even, which means I hope we at least get the exact amount of money we spent on the house. Now, any more money, then you would say we made. So in this case, if you sold your house for, I'm going to put it up here, house sold, let's say $600,000. Then you could say we made 100,000. K is the short form for thousand, and we verbalize it. 100K. We made 100K, 100,000 on the sale of our house. All right. Now, I'll just cover all the bases because if the house sold for, let's say, 400,000, this is not a good situation for you at all. 400,000, 400K, then you have to say, unfortunately, we lost 100,000 on the sale of our house, which is very unfortunate. So hopefully you're in this situation, and at the very least, this situation. Let's continue on. The film picks up after the events of 2009's Avatar. This is the original Avatar. Oh no, I asked when Top Gun was made. Original Avatar was made in 2009. Okay, so this is the original. Now, in 2022, they're talking about the sequel. The film picks up after the events of 2009's Avatar, which is the highest grossing film of all time. That's awesome. With box office receipts of $2.97 billion. And remember, this is in 2009, so the value of that money was more in 2009. All right. Highest grossing, gross. This simply is another way of saying highest earning. Highest earning. In more of a business talk context, they use the term gross profit, gross margins, gross sales. So that's just more of a business term. But in more of an everyday context, you can use highest earning film of all time. Okay, let's look at this. Pick up. Because of course, you know the phrasal verb to pick up. I just picked up a pen. Or you can pick your kids up from school, which means to get your kids at school. But let's look at this, because they're not talking about picking something up, and they're not talking about bringing someone from one location to another. So what are they talking about in this context? Well, remember, they're talking about the sequel, which was filmed in 2022. It picks up after the events of 2009. In this context, it means it continues. It continues where the film left off. So in this case, pick up, you can think of it as to continue where it left off. Now, this is a useful phrasal verb because we use it quite commonly in conversations. Let's say you're in a meeting and you're discussing your sales strategy for an upcoming product launch, okay? But you have another meeting you have to go to. So you end your current meeting, but you're not done talking. There's still more to discuss. You can say, let's pick this up tomorrow. Let's pick this up tomorrow. Let's pick this up tomorrow. So this is our conversation. Let's pick our conversation up tomorrow. So in this context, you can understand it means let's continue talking about the sales strategy. I don't remember what I said. Let's continue talking about our sales strategy. And we stopped talking about this one point. So tomorrow, when we continue our conversation, we're going to start talking about the last topic of this meeting. So let's pick up our conversation tomorrow. So in this specific context, it means continue. It's very useful when you're having any sort of conversations or discussions. It doesn't have to be a business context. You could be discussing your vacation plans with your wife, your husband, your friend, and then you have to make dinner or you have to pick your kid up from school. Notice in that context, pick up is a totally different phrasal verb. So you might say, let's pick this up tomorrow, pick this up after dinner and finalize our flights. So maybe you were discussing your flights. You have to go make dinner. After dinner, you're going to pick up the conversation and finalize your flights, which is what you were talking about. All right, let's continue on. Analysts say the new installment is unlikely to beat that figure, as cinema attendances are still down post-pandemic. Okay, the new installment, this simply means the sequel. The sequel. It's not the most common way of saying it. I would just ignore this. I don't think it's that useful. Analysts say the sequel. That's the easiest way of saying it. Analysts say the sequel is unlikely. So in this case, maybe we'll say less than 50% chance. So maybe a 40% chance, a 30% chance. It's unlikely to beat that figure. So the figure, in this context, if they don't define a noun, you have to look back at the last referenced figure, the last referenced number. And in this case, it's 2.97 billion. So that is the figure, 2.97 billion. Remember, BN is the short form of billion. You could even just do billion with a B, but I'll just put BN. So that's the figure, $2.97 billion. So beat in this case means exceed. So to make 3 billion, 3.5 billion, 4 billion, that would all be exceed or beat, to do more. So it's unlikely. There's less than a 50% chance. And at this time, it's made 1 million, right? 1 billion. That's the milestone it passed, $1 billion. So it has 2 billion more that it needs to earn before it beats its original movie. So before the sequel beats the original movie. But remember, it needs to make 2 billion to break even, to be at that point. All right, let's continue on. But based on current performance, the film is likely to overtake Top Gun Maverick as the biggest film of 2022. Overtake means, again, this is another way of saying exceed. So Top Gun was in the lead. It was performing very well, but then Avatar, right now, maybe Avatar is even, but Avatar just overtook Top Gun. It is now in the lead. So to become the leader, to overtake, to become the new leader. Top Gun was the leader. Avatar overtook. Notice I just conjugated when I said that out loud, overtook, because our verb is take. You need to conjugate take. So in this case, in the past, it is overtook. So we can say Avatar overtook Top Gun as the biggest film of 2022. If this has in fact happened. In this case, it hasn't happened because they're saying it's likely. Likely means there is more than 50% chance. That's likely. More than 50% chance. Let's continue on. That news may come as a surprise to critics, some of whom panned The Way of Water as a lumbering, humorless, damp squib of a movie in which nothing meaningful happens and the story is really pretty stupid. So some negative adjectives you can add to your vocabulary if you choose. To come as a surprise. This is simply a way of saying the news may seem unexpected. So critics are the people that do not like the movie. Okay, those are the critics. They don't like the movie. So for them, it would be unexpected that Avatar is the most popular movie of 2022. It came as a surprise. So this is a great expression. Our verb is come, so you need to conjugate it based on your verb tense. So you might say, I was promoted and it came as a surprise, which means you were not expecting the promotion. You were not expecting the promotion. Now, we also use this in the negative form to say you were expecting it. Because if I say, and it didn't come, because here, this is my past simple, right? Came. But if I'm adding my negative, the negative is didn't in the past simple. And now I need my base verb come. I was promoted and it didn't come as a surprise, which means you were expecting the promotion. So we use both. You can say it came as a surprise. It didn't come as a surprise. Both are very common. Let's continue on. Water. Oh, sorry. That's the way of water. And we read that part, all those negative adjectives. Okay, others. So others, if we were talking about the critics, the other people would be the ones that enjoyed the film. So I guess we could call them the fans. The fans. That would be the opposite. You have critics and then you have fans. So fans, opposite of critics. So fans like the film, critics don't like the film. I have critics as well. And I also have fans. I hope you're one of my fans and not one of my critics. Okay. Others, the fans, were more enthusiastic, calling the film an eye-popping, jaw-dropping spectacle and a fully immersive waking dream. So I just kind of acted it out because imagine you're watching this movie and your eyes open wide. Generally, that happens when we're very engaged or we're surprised in a good way. When something is really beautiful, your eyes open wide. So that's where this comes from, an eye-popping or jaw-dropping. So you might say, seeing the Eiffel Tower for the first time was jaw-dropping. Or you could say, was eye-popping. So when I saw it, I went, in awe and beauty. So awe and beauty. What about you? Have you had a jaw-dropping experience, an eye-popping experience, a place you saw, something you saw that was just so beautiful, unique, interesting? Share it in the comments if you had. Practice your new vocabulary. All right, let's move on. The original Avatar was essentially a science fiction version of Pocahontas, following the story of greedy, colonialist humans stripping the resources of a distant planet called Pandora. Greedy, you probably know what this means, but it's very common, so I'll just share it just in case. This is an adjective, and it describes somebody who is not generous. It's the opposite of generous. For example, my sister got a huge box of chocolates for her birthday, but she wouldn't share with anyone. She's so greedy. So it can be when somebody doesn't want to share their possessions, their money, their food. We use this commonly with food. I know probably you instantly think about money, but we use it a lot with food as well. So if somebody doesn't want to share their food with you, you can say, stop being so greedy. Stop being so greedy. So notice, stop, and now I have my gerund. Stop is a gerund verb. Our verb is the verb to be. She is. This is the contraction form. She is. She's. She is so greedy. So my verb is the verb to be. In the gerund form, I need being. Stop being so greedy. That could be something someone says to you if you don't want to share. Hopefully you're not greedy. The sequel is set several years later as Sully and Neytiri. I don't know how to say this name because I did not see the original Avatar, and this is not an English name, so I will just say Neytiri. Sully and Neytiri head underwater to protect their planet from another human invasion while attempting to raise a family. Okay, let's just look at this. Head. This is a pretty common verb, so this is a verb. Now, to head. This is used as a way of saying to go, to go. So head underwater. So they live on the surface, on the ground. Now they're going underwater. They're heading underwater. We use this a lot when talking about going to a specific location. So for example, what time do you want to head to the mall? What time do you want to head to the mall? This simply means go. Or Let's say you were at your friend's party and another friend could ask you, what time did you head home? What time did you go home? What time did you leave the party? But go home is another way of saying leave. So the verb doesn't replace leave. The verb replaces go, but we use it in a very specific context, not go in any context. We use it to go to a specific location. That's how I would use it. Even in a business context, very common. What time are you heading to the conference, for example? So you can add this to your vocabulary to sound very natural, but also you'll probably hear it a lot from native speakers, and now you know what it means. So that's the end of our article. Are you excited to watch the sequel of Avatar, or maybe even the original if you haven't seen the sequel yet? Now what I'll do is I will read the article in full from start to finish so you can practice along with my pronunciation. So let's do that now. Avatar, The Way of Water passes $1 billion at the global box office. Avatar, The Way of Water has made $1 billion at the global box office in just 14 days, becoming the fastest film to pass the milestone this year. The long-delayed sequel has proved a hit with audiences despite widely varying reviews. It is one of only 3 films to surpass $1 billion this year, after Top Gun: Maverick and Jurassic World Domination. However, director James Cameron has said his technologically innovative movie needs to make $2 billion to break even. The film picks up after the events of 2009's Avatar, which is the highest grossing film of all time, with box office receipts of $2.97 billion. Analysts say the new installment is unlikely to beat that figure, as cinema attendances are still down post-pandemic. But based on current performance, the film is likely to overtake Top Gun: Maverick as the biggest film of 2022. That news may come as a surprise to critics, some of whom panned The Way of Water as a lumbering, humorless, damp squib of a movie in which nothing meaningful happens, and the story is really pretty stupid. Others were more enthusiastic, calling the film an eye-opening, jaw-dropping spectacle and a fully immersive waking dream. The original Avatar was essentially a science fiction version of Pocahontas, following the story of greedy colonialist humans stripping the resources of a distant planet called Pandora. The sequel is set several years later as Sully and Neytiri head underwater to protect their planet from another human invasion while attempting to raise a family. Amazing job with this lesson today. Think of all the advanced grammar, the complex sentence structure, the natural vocabulary that you learned today. Now, you can look in the description below for the link to download the free lesson PDF that summarizes everything we covered today. And if you found this lesson helpful, please hit the like button, share it with your friends, and of course, subscribe. And before you go, make sure you head on over to my website, JForrestEnglish.com, and download your free speaking guide. In this guide, I share 6 tips on how to speak English fluently and confidently. And until next time, happy studying!